Good morning. It's June 22nd, 2012. This is David Plaza's Community Conversation Editor for the News Press. We have the pleasure of having with us Dr. Paige Kreegel, who is a candidate for Congress District 19, representing Southwest Florida. And for the record, editorial board members and alumni, would you please introduce yourselves, starting with Mr. Kalfas?
I'm Dick Kalfas from Cape Coral.
I'm Michelle Doherty. I'm an alumni of the editorial board, community member.
Pam Grotehouse from Bonita Springs.
Jim Powers, I'm from Cape Coral.
Hunter Leak, alumnus of editorial.
Terry Everly, executive editor.
We also have two special guests with us, so thank you very much for joining us here today. Dr. Kreegel, tell us, why are you running for this position?
Representing Southwest Florida in the state legislature for the past 8 years has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, and I'm running for Congress because I want to continue representing you all, my friends, my neighbors here in Southwest Florida.
And in preparing this campaign, when you're looking at it, you traditionally represented the Charlotte County area. Now you'll be representing Lee County and portions of Collier County. What factored into the decision of coming south to do that?
Well, actually, I represent Lee County. I represent North Fort Myers, just east of downtown, and I also represent Alva, Buckingham, all of Lehigh. So I've had a big chunk of Lee County for 8 years now, and I've enjoyed representing this.
Excellent. What are some of your top priorities if you're elected to Congress?
Well, my priorities certainly include balancing the budget, cutting spending. Healthcare is going to be a big issue. That's certainly going to be coming up. What we've got coming up probably certainly next week will be the Supreme Court ruling on the Patient Protection Act, whatever you want to call it, Obamacare. And I feel, and most people are of the thought that probably they're going to knock out one of the main tenets of Obamacare, which is the individual mandate. That being the case, instead of jumping for victory, we have to just realize that we need to sit down and figure out what's coming after that. So if this didn't work, we need to figure out what we're going to do that does work. So I think healthcare is certainly be a big issue.
And you have tremendous experience with this as a representative, where I believe anywhere from 30 to 40% of the state budget has been dedicated to the healthcare costs. What are some of those things? I remember when we talked to Senator Bennett a few months ago, he said the state has no plan should Obamacare, Patient Protection, Affordable Care Act be repealed or sustained. What are some of the suggestions you might have in terms of moving this forward, given your experience as a legislator and also as a medical doctor?
You're talking about in as far as the national scene, as far as, I mean, in Florida, we are fairly well covered. We've been able to keep up with Medicaid, and that is, of course, the percentage of our budget has grown, and so it's kind of pushed a lot of other things to the side or completely out of the budget. Certainly this past year, what we've had money for is health education and public safety, and that's about it. So on the national scene, I'm sure Dr. Leak has his opinion as well too, but I think what we need is national conversation. We need a lot of input because there's really only four questions in national health care delivery. Who's covered? What's covered? How much does it cost? Answer those first two questions. I can use your computer and tell you what it's going to cost. And the final big question is who's going to pay for it? And those are not rhetorical questions. Those are the main questions we need to focus in on and get some national consensus across the country. There certainly can be a wide range of opinions, but I think we can reach with minimal rhetoric. If we get rid of the rhetoric and we focus on the facts, we can come up with enough facts so that people can take a look at it and at least come to a consensus, a plurality on what our answers are going to be for those four questions. By way of example, 20 years ago when Hillary Clinton was pushing through what was at the time called Hillary Care, for example, they said they wanted to offer a package of basic medical benefits. The trouble was that term was never defined. Because you haven't defined the term, you don't know what the cost is going to be. Do we cover mammograms? I would certainly hope for that. Half the country is women, and breast cancer is probably the biggest killer. So we're going to cover mammograms? Great. Once we found breast cancer, now what do we do? So what constitutes basic medical benefits? You need to define these terms, and we need to know what we're really talking about. Then we can get a cost grip on the cost, and then at that point in time, people can decide exactly what they want in this healthcare coverage and who's going to cover, what it's going to cover, and finally who's going to pay for it.
What do you believe is the number one, the biggest issue facing the country?
I believe the overwhelming issue facing our country is our out-of-control government spending, and with it, of course, the unbearable national debt, and what it's going to do in the very near future in terms of hyperinflation and devaluation of the dollar and the deterioration in our national quality of life.
Do you have any ideas of how to get the two sides to compromise? Everyone talks about it, but no one seems to work towards it.
Working towards it, that is a great, it's a great phrase, and I like that because I'm a great incrementalist. You know, if you cut 10% a year for 10 years, now we got a balanced budget. You know, pick a percentage, work towards that, and I've seen this repeatedly in the state legislature where, yeah, it's not me. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, you get people in there in leadership roles, and they want to make a legacy, honestly. They want to make some sweeping change that they were remembered for forever. Deregulation, for example, of a lot of small industries and professions came about 2 years ago. It didn't pass. They tried to shove everybody under the one tent, deregulate 60-something, and then they got cut down to 30, and because of one, the interior designers, the whole bill failed. There's nothing wrong with doing it one profession at a time. In that particular instance, I don't think anybody here really thinks the government has a role in regulating hair weavers. I mean, if you don't like your hair weave, go to a different place next week. And you could go down by profession, but trying to lump so many things together, you try to swallow that and you get choked. So I'm an incrementalist, and you know that's where we could reach compromise. We said, look, this year the budget gets no bigger than last year, period. And the next year we're going to do a 5% or an 8% or 10% cut. If you want to make it across the board, you can do it for a while. But if we incrementally go in that direction, we'll get there. But if you never go in that direction.
As an incrementalist, and someone who's
I don't know if that label will fit me.
someone who's extremely experienced in things legislative,
Yeah.
you know the influence that a freshman has. What would you concentrate on, and how would you gain any influence in the Congress to represent us?
Well, the first thing you have to do is try to get into committees which, you know, a lot of it goes to which committees you're assigned to, and try to get into committees which have, at least I have some background in and some ability to influence over. For example, if I were in agriculture or healthcare, I would have some knowledge in the area going into this. So you'd be able to have some influence just by nature of the fact that you do have experience and you speak with some degree of authority on it. You're not just waiting for the next lobbyist to walk in and unload on you with a bunch of paid-for baloney.
Are there other areas that you would be interested in sitting on committee?
I would, and we certainly need to look at finance, you know, the various ways and means finance committees. That, for better or worse, is kind of the linchpin to the policy and everything else. It's nice to come up with just policy and healthcare, but if you don't have the financing for it, if you don't have the background there. So if you could get on one of those committees with the knowledge that they're quite sought after committee seats, but it's change over every year.
Paige, let me go back to healthcare. Something that I've grappled with